Chapter 10, Choosing Your Battles. The art of living lies in a fine mingling of letting go and holding on. Henry Ellis. When you're living in possibilities rather than in a defeating place of hating what you do, hating your job, and when you start to look toward and wonder about the future rather than dreading it, you can handle more. You will have more energy for and insight into your daily life. Wondering about the possibilities stirs the dream, and thinking about the dream empowers your life, your thoughts, and your coping skills. Choosing your battles. This is a profound thought in many of life's arenas, and yet very difficult to follow through on. What does it mean? Well, it means balance. Choosing what's important for you to deal with or fight and what you can let go of. Simplify your life by choosing what you want to tackle and pass by the lesser things. Keep it simple. What is important? How do I choose my battles? How do I know what's going to really matter in the long run and where I should invest my energies? I learned that during tough times, I only had so much capacity, so I had to decide what was worth the extra effort. If you are a compulsive cleaner, then a spotless kitchen might mean everything to you. What is important enough to put energy into that will make you feel better, and what will drain you of what little energy you have left for your family? Is it worth quibbling over table manners with your kids? Is it better to teach them chores versus doing it yourself? When we are raising kids alone, we have to weigh all the things that seem so important. What matters most to you? Have you thought through what you can live with and what you can't live with? Find out what is the most important to you and focus your energies there. Find ways to let the less important things go. I have friends who work very hard teaching their children how to clean, and others who say, I just don't have the time. It's easier for me to do it myself. Some people think what you have to let go of is supreme importance. They may even try to should on you, but you can only do so much and teach so much. Another single mom was telling me she expects her kids to strip their beds every Saturday. It really matters to her that their bedding is washed. Well, her busy high school-age kids don't see clean sheets as a priority, and they don't seem to get around to it. This mom shyly told me, I just do it myself. It's easier, and it gets done. Well, I said, good for you. But, true confession time, I am not above bribing my kids. Her eyes brightened up as I told her that before I had kids, I was appalled at anyone who would bribe a child to do something they should do. After so many years as a single mom, I learned if it was important to me, but not to them, I offered a reward when I needed their help. I offered pizza in exchange for a clean house. I made sure the bribe fit into what I needed. If you go to the store for me and get what I need, you can keep whatever change is left over. Hey, sometimes we just have to settle for whatever works and go for it. I can't do it all, teach it all, or manage it all, so I had to let go of what I could, bribe what I couldn't, and find a way to let it be. Not only did I offer myself a little grace, but I also gave my kids a break in the process because they can't do it all either. I had to learn to choose my battles. In my family, we have quite a collection of disorders. Start with me, I struggle with depression, and I take antidepressants. Believe me, I've heard the whole gamut of options about taking them. Others tell me you should just pray harder, try harder, change your diet, do these exercise and or think positive thoughts. Remember, I'm a coach and we are all about looking for the positive. There are some people, motivational thinkers, who say when I'm living the life I love, I won't need these pills anymore. And I know what I know, and I know what I need. I also know that my kids benefit when I take my meds. If I don't take them, I keep myself stuck. I live in a non-coping way, and I want to hide from the world. Will there come a time when I don't need antidepressants anymore? Well, I don't know, but for now I do. I have a family to care for, and they have suffered through enough with circumstances beyond their control. It is no time to experiment with a layman's theory that will probably land me in a more depressed state. Then there are those people I know who could benefit from antidepressants but tell me they can't possibly take them as if it's a horrific weakness. When I remind them that I take medications, some have said, well, it's okay for you, but I can't. I'm not sure what they mean, but what I know is that choosing my battle means taking my meds regardless of what anybody else thinks, without having to defend my decision to anyone. I don't want to waste time and energy defending what I know I need, so I choose my battles. Going off my meds or defending my need for them is not a battle worth waging. My lifelong friend, who was my college roommate, bought me tickets to the Women of Faith conference. At first, I didn't want to go because I was sad and I couldn't get a grip. I had just experienced one of a series of devastating blows. I didn't want to go hear a bunch of Christian women telling me I don't have enough faith, because that is what I thought the talks would be about. Boy, was I wrong. Before I knew how wrong I was, I decided to go mostly for my friend's sake. Joy has such a helper's heart, and she was offering me a leg up. But I also went because I knew Barbara Johnson, CEO of Spatula Ministries, would be there. I had admired her for a long time. Barbara Johnson wrote a number of books about having struggles in her life, and one of them was finding out her son was gay, at a time when that issue was not discussed. In fact, I bought her book at a library book sale, having no idea she was the one who wrote about her gay son. In fact, she called her organization Spatula Ministries because when you found out a person in your family was gay in that day and age, you had to be scraped off the ceiling with a spatula. I picked up her book at a garage sale because it was classified as humor on the cover. As I read her story, my brain kept screaming, No. I knew my ex-husband was gay, but I didn't want to admit it was real. Please, God, I said, don't let this be my life too. Her book forced me to look at my situation and see it for what it was. As the G.I. Joe cartoon says, knowing is half the battle. Barbara ended up not coming to the conference, as if her life hadn't already been tough enough with a husband nearly killed in a car wreck and a son who came out of the closet with painful regrets about how she handled the news of the latter, and now she found she had cancer. But I'm glad I attended anyway. I cried through most of the conference. It was the singing and the speaking that touched my heart with acceptance. My poor friend Joy, I don't know if she knew what she was getting into by asking me to come, but she silently sat by my side throughout the conference and let it be what it was. Many well-known Christian women spoke about their everyday challenges, and several even confessed to being on antidepressants, and very thankful about it. I couldn't believe it. I had expected a holier-than-thou attitude, and I expected to walk away feeling like even more of a failure than I already felt like I was. 2 divorces, now antidepressants, working full-time while my kids were still young. I thought to myself, how much lower could I sink? How could I ever share my faith when I had messed up my life so badly? I have 3 of the most amazing children I know. We have struggled, but those struggles have ultimately been good for us. We are a family that believes in loving others, offering grace, accepting others as they are, and showing compassion. My marriage didn't fail at all from the perspective of my children. Their lives were meant to be, and my world is a better place because of them. All the pain of rejection has melted into nothing because my children are worth infinitely more than me getting my way. So where should I put my energy? What battle will I join, and what will I let fly by? I choose to put my energy into family, work, then some fun, gardening, another hobby, something that refreshes me. I want to see myself as God truly sees me, and I will put 0 effort into becoming what condemning people think I should be. I was offered a job in special education at my kids' school. I knew I could do really well in that department. I knew I would love the children, but I knew if I did it every day, by the time I got home, I'd be spent and impatient with my own kids, so I turned down the job. What decisions do you have to make? What battles are worth taking on? Be prepared to be misunderstood. Say no anyway. Know what you know about yourself and your family. Choose accordingly. Other disorders in our family include ADHD and OCD. One of my sons has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and he struggled in school. His strand of OCD was perfectionism. He would erase his school paper until the paper ripped under the friction. He couldn't turn in a paper he didn't think was perfect, so he gave up on turning in homework. He was failing, and no one seemed to understand why, so the school counselor, Leah, took him on. She understood him and worked with him. She helped him find ways to cope. She gave him a place to come and sit when things seemed too overwhelming. As his time in high school drew to a close, I worried that he would not graduate, and I wasn't sure he cared much about it. I had to let go, but I started reacting out of fear of what would happen if he didn't graduate. What kind of parent would that make me? I got lost in all the what ifs, even though we were getting help, going to counseling, and working hard on our options. I had to let go of the question, will he graduate? I stopped trying to force the issue, and I let him take ownership of it, and when it became less important to me, it seemed suddenly to become more important to him. I also gave his girlfriend a lot of credit for helping him graduate. She had a way with him that was so kind and loving, whereas I would get frustrated and cranky. I was anything but a perfectionist, and I didn't understand his OCD. Medication and behavior modification all helped, but I still had to give his schooling back to him. I gave him the options of homeschooling, obtaining his GED certificate, or finding some other way to make it through high school, and then I just let go. Wow! He did graduate from high school and then went on to graduate from trade school with top honors as a mechanic. I have no regrets for having chosen my battle and not making a new career out of getting him through high school. That was his battle. I have another son with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, who has taught me so much about life. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but my friend Precious and I like to call it artists daring to dream. If you know anything about ADHD, you are aware that there are some amazing things that go with it. One seems to be always sticking up for the underdog. Well, this got him in a lot of trouble more times than not because he felt a teacher was being unfair to another student. He would vocalize it. In fact, when I worked for the Big Brother, Big Sister program, my office in the high school building was pretty close to the principal's office, and the detention room. My son would often walk by and give me a salute and then take his seat in the detention room because he'd been kicked out of class. On one of those occasions, I could hear him in the room tapping and making drumming noise. Kids with ADHD don't sit still very well, and in fact, it's difficult for them to sit at all. So I peeked in and saw he was drumming away on every possible object in the room. The vice principal was in the next office and was hearing it all, and when I shot him a look halfway between embarrassment and bewilderment, he smiled knowingly and said, "He's not hurting anyone, and really, I would be more concerned if he was quiet." How grateful I was to Mr. Patton, who knew a thing or two about ADHD. I've heard all the conversations about ADHD, and I've heard folks say that kids are overdiagnosed and they are all just taking pills to keep them quiet. And perhaps you've heard this said or even thought it yourself. My son takes pills, but he made the choice to have the meds only when he was ready, and he was ready when he realized he couldn't pay attention or finish anything like other people. The medications have helped him remarkably, and it's not about quiet or control, it's about normal functioning. ADHD is very real, and we are all very grateful for those pills. These disorders have affected my children's schooling, and they have taken up much of my limited energy. I was forced to make decisions to let other things go, important things, but I chose what was best for my children. I was often told that I was making excuses for my children, but when my children were diagnosed, they agreed and could see how their disorder was affecting their life as well as our life together. All I could do was love and support them no matter what. In this case, I looked to the Family Resource Center for help, counseling, and support. This is where I discovered the Readiness to Learn program, RTL. That supports children who want to stay in school. It was such a relief that the people I worked with at RTL believed me. It was incredible and gave me energy to do right by my kids. Cleaning your house while your kids are still growing is like shoveling the snow before it stops snowing. Phyllis Diller. Phyllis Diller's Housekeeping Hints, 1966. Now, I have to confess I'm a messy. I prefer explaining it by saying that my kids come first, so there's no time for organizing. Housework has always been a struggle for me, so imagine a messy with a child who is a minimalist and perfectionist with OCD, and imagine a messy with a child who's bouncing off the walls with enough energy for 10 people. Not only that, but my two boys had disorders that were at opposite ends of the spectrum. They loved each other and they hated each other at the same time. Each could not tolerate the other one's disorder, and at times it felt unbearable to me. There were a few months when the older one lived somewhere else because he didn't feel safe around his brother's impulsiveness. I had to make a choice to let it be what it was and trust my kids to know what they needed. But I hated it. It broke my heart that we could not live together like a normal family, but I was grateful for the couple that took my son in and loved him. They gave him a safe place to be while we all worked through the struggles. I went to a support group called Messies Anonymous, and I'm not kidding. They gave me permission to let go and not be so hard on myself. I envy those who have the natural gift for organizing and keeping things picked up. They're always ready for guests. For some of us, well, it's more difficult. And if one adds depression and shame about divorce and shame about a messy house, children with disorders on opposite ends of the spectrum into the mix, well, it becomes even more difficult. The last variable is that I'm dealing with all this by myself as a single mom. No tag team parenting, just me all the time, 24/7. So I had to choose what I could take on and what I had to let go. I couldn't be the provider for the family, arbiter of conflicts, chief family financial officer, family taxi driver, chef, and Susie homemaker all at the same time. I couldn't do it all, and neither can you. Choose what's important, give yourself permission to do what you can, and let the rest go. So how do you get the things done that you have to let go, but that you still have to get done? One answer, barter. I had a friend who loves to organize. So I would trade or barter with her. She helped me with my house and I helped her with her garden. I know what you're thinking, but gardening is like therapy for me. To get my hands in dirt is heavenly. I just had to be creative and also give myself permission to get help with what had to be done, but what I really stink at doing. If you have plenty of money, you can hire a maid. But if you're pinching pennies, you have to be creative, and trading services is a way to keep you doing what comes natural while helping you address the dreaded tasks. I have amazing friends, wonderful friends who drank coffee and ate chocolate chip cookies with me at the table, piled high with schoolwork, bills, and groceries, maybe even a cat. Friends who found an empty place among the laundry on the couch to sit and visit, who saw me, not my mess. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you, friends who pitched in for even bigger events like graduations and parties, and those who helped us move in and move out of houses. You are my heroes. Maybe your children have disorders. Maybe you have a child with fetal alcohol syndrome or affect. Many adopted children have this disorder, and maybe their disorder has forever changed your life. I have friends who have adopted children with FAS, and the children look fine and they're very high functioning, but their brains are truly damaged, and there is a disconnection at some level. I have watched these friends in the trenches, and I've watched their heartache at being misunderstood. I've sat with them as they weep, wondering what they've done wrong. I've seen these parents being accused of being the problem by well-meaning friends or even counselors. Yet I have been inspired by their strength. I honestly don't know how any of us can survive with so much heartache. Fetal alcohol children can't be fixed, and when they become adults, they are completely on their own. They may even see themselves as normal and rational. They don't even acknowledge they have it. Their decisions and choices seem perfectly right to them. So you can't help or advise them. In fact, they think everyone else is the problem. They're charming and sweet, and yet they have this disconnect that makes life difficult for them and their families. See, some disorders have pills or therapies that the folks who have them can take and function at a fairly normal level. I have taken antidepressants, and it has made my life a bit easier. But how do you cope with a condition for which there is no cure? No pill, no therapy. How do you live with the unresolved story? I heard a woman speaking at a luncheon. She spoke about adopting children and all the blessings and wonderful stories. Boy, I was touched, but I felt even sadder for my friends whose adoption experience had been so difficult with their FAS child. Afterwards, I shook the speaker's hand and thanked her. I told her about my friends and their FAS child and how they loved him so much, but their adoption experience had become such a struggle. The speaker started to cry. She told me the rest of her own story, how hard it has been with her own adopted children and their own disorders. I told her that I would have much rather heard that story. We often don't want to tell unresolved stories because other people don't know what to do with them. Many people don't know what to do with something that can't be fixed. They tend to fix, blame, judge, and minimize. First, the fixing mechanism kicks in with unsolicited advice. Then the blame game because someone must be responsible for the imperfection. Then shoulds with all their pontificating judgment. And finally, minimizing, accusing people of looking for excuses for what is their own irresponsibility. People can't help it. They don't like an unresolved story. In fact, they don't really take people's stories into account at all, since they are essentially all unfinished stories that may or may not result in a happy ending. Well, we weren't created for hopelessness. We were created for hope. My friends have learned to choose their battles and modeled their courage to me. It has not been easy, and they have learned to laugh, and I'm so honored to laugh with them. Just wondering, have you looked at your life and thought, how did this ever happen? How do we choose what's next? How do we live in the midst of life? Disorders, divorce, death? Are you choosing your battles or actually trying to do it all? What can you let go of? What is a priority to you? What changes would you like to make? What is one small step that will help you be true to yourself and your values while letting go of some things? What would permission look like for you? Write yourself a permission slip. I give you permission to let go of. Choose your battles and choose to remember your dream. Even if your passion is on hold, on the shelf, or in the trunk, it's still yours. You still have purpose, and right now it may look a little different than you anticipated. By choosing your battles, you clear the path a little for yourself and your needs. When you start letting go of doing and being everything and embracing that you are enough, when you take the time to breathe and nap, you will find the energy to go on. The adventure is your story, the journey. Be in it. Choose it. Choose your battles. Choose life. Adventure and good things will happen. As Fran Fisher of the Academy of Coach Training, ACT, used to say, are you dancing in the moment? Give yourself permission and choose your battles.